For those in the audience who may not know David Morgan, he is the president and CEO of TEAM. TEAM is a health human services organization that is committed to serve the economically disadvantaged and vulnerable at-risk people in our region. Their work is the full spectrum, from early childhood, prenatal, early childhood, Head Start, all the basic needs and case management, elderly services, Meals on Wheels. They do employment and training and supports the housing issues here in our valley. They are the Valley's Community Action Agency. David, we hear the term basic needs, but what are they? And what sort of activities are needed to make sure that people's basic needs are met? And if I can just piggyback over to explaining, having you talk about Alice and who Alice is and what Alice is, all of that.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone, for having me and the opportunity. There's a couple of things. I have Patrick did a really nice job underscoring the realities of the social determinants of health and wellness at a population level. I have the unfortunate task of kind of giving you a sobering reality of where the needle has moved over the last recent years on some of the economic, the status of households within this region. When we look at Beacon Falls, Naugatuck, Hansonia, Derby, Oxford, Seymour, and Shelton, when you look at this report. So I'm going to underscore a couple of statistics that I saw in the report over the weekend. The poverty rate in this region has increased. Since 2000, it's moved from 5% to 8%. And when I say poverty, we're talking about 100% of the federal poverty level or below. The low income rate, which is the state of Connecticut's recognized what they call a self-sufficiency standard, which is a bit outdated as well, and I'll explain that in a minute. The low income rate has increased as well. Since 2000, in our region, it's moved from 15% to 21%. So 1 in 5 individuals are what we call low income in this region, and you'll see that in the report. Sometimes we throw a lot of numbers and percentages around, so I also want to tell you, when we say poverty has increased to 8%, picture a single adult household, they're making less than $13,000 a year. That's moved up from 5% to 8%. Envision an elderly couple, 2 individuals living in this region in poverty, they're making less than $17,000 a year. Or picture mom and dad with 2 children. They would be making less than $26,000 a year. Just to give you a sense of that, reality has increased since the year 2000 from 5% to 8% in this region. Now, the laughable self-sufficiency standard for the state of Connecticut, which is double the federal poverty rate, the low income, take those same examples. You take that single adult, they are making just under $25,000 a year. Envision that elderly couple, they're making less than $34,000 a year, and picture that mom and dad with 2 children, they're making just under $52,000 a year. Those realities, again, I'm going to underscore it again, has increased since 2000. It's increased from 15% to 21%, 1 in 5. I also want to underscore what Sharon said. The median household income has declined by nearly 4% since 1990. And we see that trend in the state of Connecticut, but right here in this region, and you'll see it in the report, it's a larger decrease in this region than what is witnessed statewide. So it's very sobering. It's not enjoyable to hold the mirror up to the community and say, Houston, we have a problem, but if we're really going to systemically address an issue and meaningfully work together collectively, as Sharon outlined, we really got to acknowledge the problem and identify what the problem is. And how do we use and maximize the limited level of resources to get that return? We've got to change the way we're working together and the way we do business as a region. Sharon asked me about Alice, which is a much more realistic metric when you look at income threshold. And Alice is, the Connecticut United Way did a phenomenal job. They've done a lot of research and reporting on this. And Alice stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And it doesn't just blindly look at a household size and income. It really looks at the realities of cost for basic necessities. When you think about what does it cost for food, what does it cost to feed my children or my loved ones within my household, how much does it cost for the roof over my head, how much does it cost to pay my taxes, how much does it cost for medical care and health care insurance. It looks at those real lived realities within the state of Connecticut and within the communities that the report highlights. And then gives you a much more realistic standard. So I'm going to tell you about, so for a real income threshold for Alice, so when you take a single adult example, as I told you, we talked about the poverty level under 13,000, the low income level under under 25,000. For that single, they really need to be at least $29,000 a year to really be able to make that ends meet. And then the example of the family, it's not 51,000, and you already know this. It's not 51,000 is meeting the self-sufficiency standard. When you look at Alice, they really need to be bringing in $81,000 a year to make ends meet. And the reality is that we look at a declining income, and so families and individuals, they're faced with really difficult choices. You know, how do I keep food on the table? How do I keep the heat on? Do I skip the dental appointment? Do I skip the co-payment to go to this preventive care visit? How do I go to work if I got to pay $200 for childcare? So families and individuals are faced with really difficult choices. And the one thing I would highlight of what we could dive deep into each of the basic needs. It would be housing. And the Community Foundation, this Valley Community Index really highlights some real sobering realities on household. You heard Sharon talk about cost burden. When you look at the number of households who are spending more than 30% of their income just on the roof over their head, it's at 36%. That's for housing. Excessively cost burdened is at 15%. Meaning they're spending more than $50 to every $100 they earn. They're excessively cost burdened. 1 out of every 4 renters in this entire region of this report are excessively cost burdened. And in some communities, they're paying 60 to 70% of $100. So imagine a family, $65 out of every 100 is paying for the roof over their head, and now they got $30 to $35 to pay for taxes, health care, child care, diapers if they have young children, food on the table. You get the idea. So it makes it extremely challenging. And the report also, which was really sobering to me, was highlighting that the median household income for renter households was almost $7,000 less than what is needed to afford the median rent in this region for a 2-bedroom housing unit. Imagine the challenges that come with that, and the choices or the choices that people don't have as a result of that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I ended up having a discussion with Data Haven because there is, and I don't remember off the top of my head, you guys do, but a study out there that said housing should actually be 7% of your income should be for housing. We always say 30%. This study that they were looking at said 7%. I said, the person needs to be making $300 and some thousand a year to be able to afford that. And that is how, in a way, out of balance this can all get.
And Sharon, 43% of this whole region falls under the Alice threshold, regardless of from Oxford to Shelton to Beacon Falls. Some communities it soars over 50 and 60%.
Right. And we all know when we think we have enough money and we're like, how do I not have enough money? And it's because all of these things in our area do cost a lot of money. David, in the 2016 index, 26%, as you probably reiterating what you're saying, 26% of the Valley children 0 through 17 lived in households which were classified as that low income or poverty level. And in 2019 index, this is now at 28%. Why is it important to look at this age group? Why wouldn't we look at the adults living in poverty? Why are we focused on children living in poverty?
Great question. I mean, I think it's not rocket science. I think we all can agree that these are the most formative years of the human experience. When you talk about sociability, learning to stay on task, live and succeed within a society. The most formative time of the human experience is children, early childhood through adolescence and school age, of course. And that's part. The other desperate reality is that when if we peel the onion and we look at some of the age demographics, as Sharon said, as a region, 1 in 5 are quote unquote low income, 21%. But if you dive into children, that number jumps up to 28%. And then a really, really saddening tale is that if you wanted to look even deeper into the birth to age 5, it jumps up to 35%, which is it's really hard to swallow that. I see in the audience there's quite a number of early childhood champions in this room. There's an overwhelming level of research that looks at the prenatal to age 5 as the most formative time for the entire human experience. We all know that there's more rapid brain development, and the physiology that is going on from prenatal to age 3 is more so than the entire remainder of the entire human experience. You can look at the brain science, and by age 5, the brain's at 90% development. And so the point is, early experiences matter: the social experiences, the academic experiences, the nurturing and the love. And unfortunately, that becomes collateral when you look at this disparate impact of low income and poverty hits hardest young children. And kudos to the foundation for really saying, hey, we need to really focus on this and pick one thing that could really make a meaningful difference. And again, it's on our most formative population, the most formative years of our population, which is young children. I know Dr. DeBacco is going to be going next soon, and even looking at another metric of school age, just when you see the data in the report around children that are eligible for free and reduced meals, that's jumped up 7% in just 4 years, which is again another metric to look at economically disadvantaged households and children. And when you see some communities when more than 50%. In one community, the children are eligible for free and reduced. In another, it's more than 60% are eligible for free and reduced. And another community where it's over 70% of the student population from K to 12 is eligible for free and reduced. And you think about the challenges and the stresses, the adverse childhood experiences that come as a result. And we see the kids are coming with more than books in their book bags, as we say, coming into school, and the impact that has on their opportunities for recreational activities, before and after school activities, academic achievement. I mean, the data is very clear on all that.
Thanks, David. And you've transitioned us over into your other hat, which is that prenatal to 5. So that's great.